Hey guys, how you going? Hope you're all doing very well. This evening I'm going to be doing another movie review. This movie is a thriller from Australia, English language, released in the year 2018, directed by Clayton Jacobson, and this film is called Brothers Nest. So Brothers Nest is about two brothers. They have come to this realisation that their family is being torn apart. The mother is actually dying of cancer and she's on death's door, and they believe that the stepfather is going to take over the family. Since the father's passing, they believe that the stepfather was a good man, but he always had a secret, a sort of hidden agenda. And as soon as the mother dies, he's going to take over and basically sell everything. And so the brothers don't want this, and one of the brothers, the more domineering brother, he actually comes up with an idea that they're going to kill this stepfather and make it look like a suicide, and that this is going to preserve the family, and so this is for the greater good. And so the other brother, he starts to second guess this, is that they go to this very secluded house, which turns out to be their childhood house. This is where they grew up, and they're going to meticulously plan everything to every fine detail before the stepfather is due to arrive to go over the house and prepare it for selling. So the domineering brother says, okay, this is what we've got to do, and we're not going to steer away from it. And so as the more time they spend together in preparation, the more the other brother starts to second guess it, and he starts to realise that maybe the domineering brother has a secret hidden agenda. So this is going to really complicate matters, as the brotherly love is going to be tested, and whether or not they can pull through with their idea is something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on Brothers Nest. I was actually quite excited for this movie because I'm a massive fan of the Jacobson brothers. Now Clayton Jacobson is the director, he also stars as one of the brothers, and his real life brother Shane Jacobson's in this movie. And so the reason why I really wanted to see Brothers Nest, if you're familiar with Australian cinema and Australian television, you'll know who Shane Jacobson especially is that Shane Jacobson was in a movie called Kenny, which was also directed by Clayton Jacobson. So this is another partnership between real brothers. And so Kenny was one of the breakout comedies in Australian cinema. That was a movie I absolutely loved. I haven't actually reviewed that, to my surprise. I definitely have to rewatch the movie and give you my thoughts. I thought that was one of the best comedies to come out of Australia in a very long time. But since then, Shane Jacobson has been in a few movies, but as far as Clayton Jacobson teaming up with his brother, I don't know how many movies they've done together. It's not many, and if they have made other films together, I really hadn't noticed it too much. And so this is definitely the curse of Australian cinema, is that sometimes you get a really good film and then all of a sudden they go into hibernation. You don't hear from them again. And so when I heard that Clayton Jacobson is teaming up with his brother once again in Brothers Nest, I definitely had to go and see this film. Is that this is a very dark comedy, but it definitely is a very different film to Kenny. It's because this movie really has a very dark heart. And so I thought, all right, well, this seems like an Alfred Hitchcock-esque kind of film, and pairing it with these two brothers and the style of humour that these two brothers possess, I thought it was definitely enticing, and I really wanted to see it. So after finally watching Brothers Nest, I will say that this is definitely a film that takes risks. This is a movie that has a lot of self-assurance, has a lot of self-confidence, and it's not afraid to break the confines of Australian cinema. The Australian cinema, they always play it safe. There have been a few films recently that have really broken that barrier, but they are few and far between. I've said time and time again, my biggest disappointment with my country as far as filmmaking is concerned is that no one really has any confidence. They want to make made-for-television dramas about fluffy romances, and that they have undertones that dare to be spoken about and dare to be put on the table, but they're afraid to do it. And so the undertones that these movies have, I don't feel as though they're rewarding. And so I'm always waiting for that film that's really going to break out. And this movie, it actually goes that extra length, is that there are some very dark moments, and it's definitely an examination of a brotherly connection. And that brotherly connection in this movie is further intensified by the simple fact that these are actually real brothers. Shane Jacobson and Clayton Jacobson play on-screen brothers as well, and because it's very real, I could feel the chemistry. I actually felt like they were brothers. They looked very similar. They acted like I act with my brothers. And so I thought, all right, well, the relatability is there as far as connecting with an audience, with real people. And the real reactions they have with certain events, I thought, really separated them from movie characters. Is that movie characters, they're heartless killing machines. They're going to kill the stepfather. They're going to make it look like a suicide. This is their plan, and they don't have any second thoughts about it. And so that does eliminate a lot of the realism. But when you've got characters that second guess themselves, is that they're kind of doubting whether or not this is the right thing to do. Once again, there's a lot of relatability there. They want to preserve their family history. And so I felt as though they were backed in a corner where they really felt like they couldn't get out of that. And so they were willing to do desperate things. And so even the domineering brother who come up with this plan, when he starts to talk with his brother, I always felt maybe he's having second guesses. And so this is because the characters are very finely layered. And I actually thought that the script was absolutely fantastic, is that it needed a good script, because 3/4 of this movie is like a stage play. It really has a strong emphasis on the brotherly connection, is that basically these are the only two characters in the film, and initially that would seem boring, but because it's written so well and because there's a lot of dark humour thrown in there, I was never bored, and I was always on the edge of my seat waiting for the anticipation of this stepfather arriving at the house and how are things going to go. And so there's always this web of intrigue, and basically the suspense, the slow wick that's threatening to blow up at the end. And when it does blow up, I thought it was incredibly rewarding, and rewarding the audience for actually going through this slow burn tension with each and every character in this movie. And so cinematography wise, I thought it was very isolating. It actually felt like a very psychological film. It's really going to put you under the test as far as I said, connecting with these characters and just whether or not they're actually going to go through with their ideas. And so that was always around the corner, and so it felt very Alfred Hitchcock-like. And so that does have a strong positive to it, but unfortunately there is a slight negative, and the negative to that is that this movie does have a sense of predictability underneath, is that it has enough curiosity to make it a very worthwhile film, but it does feel like an Alfred Hitchcock story, and because of that you kind of know where this movie is going to go. It goes to very dark lengths, and it goes to lengths that a lot of other Australian filmmakers won't go to, but it still has that slight sense of predictability, because I felt as though this was an Alfred Hitchcock story. This is a movie made in homage to Alfred Hitchcock, but unfortunately just doesn't have quite enough of its own to steer it clear completely of predictability. But pushing that aside, it is definitely a movie I would highly recommend, especially if you are a fan of Australian cinema. It is expertly written, it's very funny, the characters are very in-depth and very believable, and right at the end it does get quite dark, it does get quite nasty, and that is what I appreciated about Brothers Nest the most, and that's the reason why I'd highly recommend you watch this little Australian movie. It is little known, not many people talk about it, which is a great shame, because the Jacobson brothers are one of the most exciting things to come out of my country. So overall, for Brothers Nest, going to give this one 4 stars. I thought it was really, really well done. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later.